Hey everyone, it's Julian, and today we have the Week 2 meta update for Set 2. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. Last weekend was SVO, one of the biggest Shadowverse tournaments we've ever had, and it ran perfectly. Now, if you guys want to check out what happened during that weekend, you can check my video out about all of the drama and stuff that happened. And then the previous video, I talked about my run. I went 8-2, so I made the playoffs. And I talked about the decks I brought and all of that stuff. So if you guys are interested in my stories from that tournament, please check the links down below. I'm going to be linking both of those videos. But today we're going to be talking about the meta as a whole from this tournament and what it can tell us about how the meta is going to advance from here, right? So we're going to be showing this document made by Ziff. Ziff has been in the community for a very long time. He kind of took up the mantle as the sort of deck list and tournament report guy. He's been doing this for a very long time. Very, very detailed data and stuff. It's really nice. So thanks to Ziff, we're going to be able to look at a lot of really nice details and stats for this tournament. So let's get right into it. So first we're going to be checking out the lineup. So of course the way this tournament worked was it was 2-deck best of 1. So the way it would work is you'd queue up, you'd see your opponent's 2 decks, and you would choose one of your 2 decks to play into one of your opponent's decks, right? So they would get to choose and you would get to choose, so you wouldn't be sure what exactly you're facing, but you would try to make your best decision based on the 2 decks your opponent has, if that makes sense. If you want to check out my thoughts on that format, check out my previous video. Of course, I will link it below. But I'm on best of 2-deck best of 1. But anyway, here are the lineups. I just want to preface that so that these are not going to be sort of great, accurate details on the meta you will see on ladder, right? Because on ladder, that's not how it works. You're basically just queuing the best deck most of the time. The best deck is Spellboost Rune, so, to break everyone's bubble. But we're going to be talking about just some of the lineups and stuff, right? And then we'll kind of go into specific deck lists and maybe talk about some of the decks that can improve and other things like that. So the most brought lineup by 244 people, one of those was me, was Midrange Sword and Spellboost Rune. 17, we'll round up to 18% of the people brought this exact lineup. I think it makes a lot of sense. You kind of just choose the 2 best decks. As you guys know, I sort of was pretty down on Sword after the tournament and during the tournament. It's pretty hard to beat Spellboost Rune, and it doesn't really beat a lot of the other stuff consistently enough. So as a second deck, it feels like right? Most of the time, I was just like, well, the best thing to choose here is Spellboost Rune because it's broken. So then the second most brought lineup, which is kind of interesting to me, with 88 people, so real big decline from the highest brought lineup, right, is Midrange Sword and Midrange Abyss. Midrange Abyss is a deck I really want to play some more and test, but it is a very similar deck to Midrange Sword, and one of my sort of theorized strategies for 2-deck best of 1, of course, was just bringing 2 decks that play very similarly, and then you basically just choose the deck based on the matchups, right? And you don't have to keep flipping the different switches to play a control deck in Spellboost Rune and then sort of a aggro mid-range deck in Sword, right? So I think that's sort of why people went that route. I am shocked to see Midrange Abyss so high. I think it was kind of a deck that came out pretty recently, and I don't think it's had, I would say, enough success to be wow, you definitely should play this, in my opinion. But yeah, 88 people brought it. Or more people brought Midrange Abyss. 88 people brought this exact lineup. Then we have Artifact Portal and Spellboost Rune. Then Artifact Portal and Midrange Sword. Then Wardhaven and Spellboost Rune. I think Wardhaven and Spellboost Rune is a really interesting bring because it kind of scares off Roach, right? Because Roach is the one counter to Rune, and Wardhaven hoses Roach. So you kind of bring the other deck where it's hey, if you bring Roach, you might get it might get crazy. But yeah, Wardhaven is another deck that I'm very much looking towards for the SVO finals or the playoffs because the way those are going to work is it is best of 3 2 deck. So it's going to be, you have to win with both of your decks. So we can kind of talk about that later once that comes up. I believe that'll be in 2 weeks. So I'm going to be preparing for that and stuff. So if you want to check out more videos from me and stuff like that, if you're excited to see some more, high-level competitive content, please like and subscribe to the videos. It'd be really helpful. And yeah, we're growing really, really fast. It's really awesome to see all of the new players and new people around in the comment section stuff. And yeah, just very thankful to everyone for liking and subscribing. But that was kind of a side tangent. Let's keep going. Then we have Midrange Sword and Aggro Abyss. Aggro Abyss is pretty popular, right? It can beat some decks, but to me it's a little high rolly. I think you do need to draw really, really well with that deck. And then from there it just keeps going down a lot of those, high level decks or high, popularity decks. So then we have a really cool tab here, playoff conversion rate. So this is the percentage of people in the playoffs, or percentage of the decks in the playoffs that, what am I trying to say? The deck that did the best in terms of getting to the playoffs. I don't know why I can't speak English, but you guys know what I mean. So this is not in order, but number 1 was actually Roach. It was brought by 184 different people, and 14 people made the playoffs. So that is like pretty high, but kind of like, it's only 2.5% higher than Spell Boost and Sword, right? Because those were the most brought decks, and they both had 32 people, or they both were brought by 32 people in the playoffs, right? So it goes Roach, and then Sword and Rune, and then the next highest is Face Dragon, but it's kind of an outlier, right? Because one person made it to the playoffs with Face Dragon, only 17 people brought it to the tournament. So that's pretty cool. We'll take a look at that deck here in a second. And then from there we have like Aggro Abyss 3.5, Midrange Abyss with 200 people brought, but 259 people brought, but 3% conversion rate. The Artifact Portal 3.1% conversion rate with 253 people brought. So pretty interesting stats. Of course, I will have this whole sheet linked in the description below as well. So then this is like individual deck, percentage. So 46% of people brought Sword, 46% of people brought Spellboost Rune, and the next is 19% at Abyss. So you can kind of see the meta. It's very much Sword and Spellboost. And then Abyss, I guess, is up there. That kind of surprised me. And Artifact, of course, too. Artifact got a lot of really good cards this set, and was kind of one of the big players from last set as well. So it can transfer over pretty easily. And they have Wardhaven also kind of up there. A lot of people are, I don't want to say downplaying, because I do think there are weaknesses to the deck. But a lot of people are down on Wardhaven right now. But that 11% brought is pretty interesting. So then we have the actual deck list. So this is not in order. This is in like alphabetical order. But the winner of the whole thing, he went undefeated. Of course, it was 10 rounds, but a lot of people had varying played rounds, because people were getting DQ'd all over the place, everything. Just crazy day. If you guys, again, want to hear about that, check out my video from a couple days ago talking about that. But it was Zones, and I actually know this guy. He's been playing for a real long time, and we actually met at a Shadowverse Evolve tournament, which was pretty funny. But he is playing Roach Forest and Artifact Portal. Let's bring those decks up. So kind of typical Roach deck. I just realized I'm not cutting off any cards, but he's playing 3 of the Garden's Allure, the draw card, of course. But yeah, very typical Forest list. The 1 Titania is pretty cool. I really like that card a lot. And no, what's her name? Water Fairy? Jolly Water Fairy, but you guys know it. The 1 drop that gives you a fairy if she dies. Kind of interesting. I've seen a lot of lists throughout the run I saw were not playing a ton of those cards. I'm not tapped into Roach enough to know why. I always thought that was like a pretty good card, but yeah. And then I saw some lists not running the Fairy Tamer as well, which is kind of interesting. But, very typical list. No other sort of alternate big drop. So there's some lists that are playing Ligma. There's some lists that are playing Olivia, stuff like that. I've even seen 1 or 2 lists playing Odin. So pretty interesting list. I like this. Yeah, I'm not a Roach player myself, but If I were to play Roach, I probably would play something similar to this. Then we have Artifact Portal. Very interesting list. The things I'm cutting off is 3 Miriams and 3 Ralmias. Very interesting list with 1 Karula, 1 Odin, 1 Lovestruck Puppeteer, and 2 Orcus, and 2 Cannons. So obviously these were probably meta calls, right? A lot of this is stuff that's probably like, hey, I want the cannons for such and such matchup or whatever. Again, another deck that I can't say I've played enough to really know, right? But I do, Artifact Portal is a pretty good deck and has a lot of really strong cards. So, yeah. So that was Zones. Then, I don't remember the rest of the order of, like, top 8 or whatever. But, again, if you guys want to see my decks, I made a video yesterday. But let's just kind of go down the line and see some interesting decks. We'll try to click on one of each. So we looked at Roach and Portal. Let's look at Midrange Sword from 2G. So he's playing the Coachwoman. I really like that. That's pretty interesting. I'm cutting off 3 Roses and 2 Amalias. Coachwoman at 2. It's pretty interesting. I don't see Coachwoman a ton anymore. 2 Alberts. I really do like 2 Alberts now. It does feel like a brick in hand unless you are winning the game on the spot. And then the 1 Grimnir. Like, Saria was a card I really did not like. I got totally baited into playing it. I think Saria just sucks. I think that card is just awful. But yeah, just, pretty normal sword list. Okay, this is Aggro Abyss from Airy. Aggro Abyss, again, is a pretty popular deck in the meta. They're playing some interesting ratios. 2 Odins, 2 Olivias, 1 Balto, 1 Filda, 1 Darkside, which is kind of interesting, kind of gives you some more late game Storm and is kind of removal a little bit. Yeah, Aggro Abyss is a pretty big player in the meta as sort of like an anti-meta stuff. It beats Rune pretty well and some other decks pretty well as well. But it's not too good into Sword. And then Airy also brought Dirt Rune. This is pure Dirt Rune. But it's kind of interesting because they're playing some spell boost stuff too. So they're playing the Stormy Blast. Most like full Dirt Runes are playing Stormy Blast. But they're also playing the William and the Burgent. Of course, Burgent is, in my opinion, one of the strongest cards from this new set. I talk about that a lot in my spell boost video a couple days ago. She's just insane, and I can see where you'd want to play her just because of how good she is, and then you might as well throw some other cards in there to get some of that value from spell boost, right? So I do really like this type of build, but I will say I don't know the strengths of playing this over just playing normal spell boost, like hybrid build, right? So yeah, that is Dirt Rune. And then Ward Haven. Let's check out Artify's Ward Haven. So this is a pretty normal build. They're playing the Divine Guard, which is, of course, that removal for 1 that can do a lot of damage. It scales with your health, or not your leader's health, but the card's health, the follower's health. Playing the 1 of Immaculate Agitator. He's the guy who banishes something on play. Pretty interesting. And 3 Odin. So I do actually kind of like this deck. There was another Wardhaven list that was running the bird, the 8-drop bird that when you tap an amulet, it gains Storm. So I do kind of like Odin a little bit more. But yeah, pretty interesting Wardhaven build. They also brought Roach. And then what else? Puppet Portal by CM Kurono. We can check that out. Of course, Puppet was a deck I was thinking about bringing. And this looks pretty normal. 2 Bell Ringers is kind of interesting, but everything else is pretty normal. The Ruby, a lot of decks play Ruby. 2 Divine Thunders. And then 2 Zwei's. None of the new spells. I might be the last person on Earth that likes the new spell. I love the new spell. I know a lot of people do not. But it is what it is. But that is Puppet Portal. And yeah, what have we missed? Let's check out DB Tempest Midrange Abyss, because I think that's one of the last really meta decks that we have not checked out. So this is Midrange Abyss. They're playing 8 2-drops, 2 Minos, which is kind of interesting. You definitely want some good 2-drops to be able to res from Sharon. That's why I really like Filled Out in this deck, because if you res him with Sharon on 5, you can Evo and kill something and have a ward hiding the Sharon, the 4/4. So I really like that. Kind of like a weird pseudo Anangrea. And then the Rage of Serpents is pretty interesting. I'm not the biggest fan of this card. I think that it's one of those cards where, like, you really need it. I feel like there should be some other cards you can replace it with, but there are a lot of people playing it. And then the late game here is 2 Gensetsus, 2 Medusas, and 2 Odins, and 3 Olivias. I do like the 3 Olivias. You do need a lot of card draw in this deck. That is my main issue with this deck right now. But yeah, I got a lot of really good new cards, and it's definitely a deck to watch out for. And yeah, was that, let's see, what else did we miss? We looked at Artifact, we looked at all these, oh, I guess we haven't looked at Spell Boost. Let's look at Spell Boost. Let's look at, like, yeah, let's look at Clyde's. He's a one-piece player, actually. A pretty good one. This is Clyde's Rune. All of the Rune decks are going to look very similar. But he is playing the 1 dark side instead of the 2nd Burgent. That's kind of interesting. But literally almost everything else is the exact same, compared to mine, for example. But it's just a very easy, like, template to copy-paste. Again, if you want to see, like, a more in-depth video about this deck, I made a, I wouldn't call it a guide, but a deck profile and a bunch of games featuring this deck. So definitely check that out. And of course, I played it in the tournament for most of the rounds, so check that out as well. But yeah. So yeah, that is pretty much all of the decks and stuff from this tournament. Let's check out, let me see the Face Dragon, though, because I know down here there was someone, yes, yeah. They were playing Face Dragon and Midrange Sword, Ararami. So let's check that out, because Face Dragon is like, maybe there's something there. It's something I want to try at least. So they're playing 2 strikes, 3 fans, of course. The Fildau, the Searing Fire Newt, the Little Dragon Annie, so this is all normal. And then, of course, the new additions in the Feline and the Orca, the Call of the Megalorca. Both of those cards are very, very strong additions to Dragon as a whole. Then we're also playing the Apollo. I imagine that is for matchups such as Sword, and maybe even Forest a little bit as well. But yeah, Apollo, kind of like that in this type of deck. Surprised to not see the Sword, the Blazing Sword, is that what it's called? But it's the 1-drop amulet that gives something +1/+1, then when it dies, you get the amulet back. But they're also playing the Fledgling Dragon Slayer. So I really kind of like the idea of this deck that's sort of like, it's aggro dragon, but it's kind of also has some removal. Yeah, Fledgling Dragon Slayer is just like a pretty okay card. Then we have Marion, of course, then Seasoned Merman, the big 5-drop that's going to end up summoning 3 Megalorcas for you if you evolve it. And then we have Forte, of course, then Odin and Warrior of the Deep to round out the end game face damage. This is definitely a deck I really want to try. I'd be really interested to see what matchups it's good into. Because this, I'm looking for a replacement for Sword for that best of 3 playoffs. Just because I don't really want to play mirrors anymore. But, this might be one. We'll see. But yeah, I really like Face Dragon there. And then any other interesting additions here? I think that's it. So yeah, we pretty much looked at every deck, an example for every deck that was played in this tournament. I think this was a really interesting tournament for the meta. I think it's very firmly Spellboost Rune is just sort of the best deck in the game right now, followed closely by Sword. I think Sword is a very strong deck, but both of those decks do kind of get countered by Roach, right, a little bit. I will say I think I have a little more success as Sword against Roach than, of course, Rune. Like, Rune does get pretty hard countered by Roach, but I do think Sword actually can beat Roach a lot of the times. And then we have the other popular decks, the Midrange Abyss, the Artifact Portal, the Aggro Abyss, and then the Ward Haven, of course, has that sort of anti-meta deck, right? Because it's like, Roach is the anti-meta, and then Ward kind of counters Roach by being the anti-meta or anti-meta, whatever you guys want to say, right? But yeah, that is basically the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what decks you guys think are going to be on the rise. I definitely think Midrange Abyss is a deck to watch out for, and I think Ward Haven will also be a deck to watch out for as Roach rises. And who knows about Face Dragon, right? But yeah, and I think another deck is like Pure Dirt Rune is interesting to me because it's like, is it good enough, or does it have enough positives to play over just the hybrid build? That would be really interesting to me to see. So we might try some of those decks on stream at some point. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Yeah, let me know what decks you guys are excited to see here in the future. And hopefully we'll get to see sort of maybe a meta shift again next weekend, as next weekend there's going to be the preliminary 2. Actually, both of them on the same day again. They're going to try their hand again at that. So we will see about that. But yeah, expect another week 3 update around this time next week. Yeah, hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.